evening. I'd like to call the East Cocalico Township Board of Supervisors meeting to order for Thursday, March 3rd, 2022. Please join me in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As always, I'd ask that you please double check your phones, make sure they're off or on vibrate. This meeting was duly advertised in the Lancaster newspaper on December 1st, 2021. There were no executive sessions held since our last meeting. Gentlemen, we have the past meeting minutes for approval. It would be the meeting minutes of February 17th. Any changes, corrections? Anything else?
No, nothing from me.
I'll make a motion to approve the Thursday, February 17, 2022 Board of Supervisor meeting minutes.
And I will second that.
I do have a question in regards to the minutes. Alan Maxwell, Medical Estates. During that meeting, if I'm not mistaken, Chairman, you had read a statement in regards to missing W-2s, which is a matter of public record, but there's nothing mentioned in the minutes in regards to that. Is there a reason for that, or can we get them added?
I think it's in there.
Yeah, it's before old business. There's
Yeah.
a paragraph.
Okay, I missed that then. Thank you.
Yeah, it's there. Yeah, that's a significant item. Okay, anyone else? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, land planning engineer.
Okay. We have two items on the agenda. Both are requests for reduction of financial security. The first one is Four Seasons Land Development. That's the expansion, that's the current expansion that they are constructing out of there. The township engineer has done the site inspection in response to their request for reduction. And he has recommended a reduction of $1,264,599.69, which would leave a remaining amount of $240,625.16. You have in your packets list of documents, including his report of the site inspection, photographs from the site inspection, some dialogue like back and forth about some landscaping items and so forth.
We expect them to hear more information.
I don't think so. Staff concurs with the recommendation. I just separately or all together.
As a group. We'll do this one first. Okay. Okay, so do we have a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to authorize a $1,264,599.69 reduction in the current financial security being held by the township for the Four Seasons Produce preliminary final land development plan, resulting in a remaining financial security being reduced to $240,625.16.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. Motion carries. Thank you.
the second reduction request is for Red Run exhaust, the land development down there. We also received a reduction request letter for that project, in response to which the township engineer did an inspection. And he is recommending the reduction in the amount of $408,528.07, which would leave a balance of $74,708.42 being held by the township. This one also includes their packets, report, site observation report, and photographs. Staff also.
I'll make a motion to authorize a $408,528.07 reduction in the current financial security being held by the township for the Red Run exhaust in Reedstown. Preliminary final land development plan, resulting in the remaining financial security being reduced to $74,708.42.
And I will second. So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any questions? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, and that motion carries. That's all for sure. Okay, thank you. Okay, Williamstown Heights.
We're continuing through trying to process the temporary access and construction easements and permanent access easements for this project. This is again the one where we're going to clean and televise the stormwater lines and then line those to be able to make sure we don't have any leaks or any continued deterioration of the stormwater pipes. So we have 5 agreements that were sent out. We've already approved 2. We got 2 more back for tonight's action. And then we're still working on trying to resolve the 5th one so that we can get the project moving. So tonight, the board has 2 motions to consider. One is a motion to authorize the chairman of the board of supervisors to execute the temporary access and construction easement and permanent access easement between East Cocalico Township and Darren B. and Jewel M. Martin, 10 Oriole Drive, Stevens, PA, 17578. And then there's a second one to authorize the chairman of the board of supervisors to execute the temporary access construction easement and permanent access easement between East Cocalico Township and the Zalka Family LTD Partnership, 9 North 7th Street, Indiana, PA, 15701, for the property located at 57 West Church Street, Stevens, PA. These are the same agreements, just individual ones and 2, so you can combine both those motions if you want. And or you want to read that all over again.
Yeah, the only difference is the 2 cases. Correct. Yes. Okay, so what's the wish of the board?
So I'll make a motion to authorize the chairman of the board of supervisors to execute the temporary access and construction easement and permanent access easement between East Cocalico Township and the owners of 10 Oriole Drive, Stevens, PA, 17578. Owners of 57 West Church Street, Stevens, PA, 17578.
I will second that motion. Any questions? With a motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Yeah. Lorenzo, it was, the address was 10 Oriole Drive. Right.
Stevens, PA.
Stevens, PA. Right.
57 West Church Street. Stevens, PA.
No, actually, correction. It's 9 North 7th Street.
So that's where they live. The property address is 57 West Church Street in Stevens. They don't have any Indiana in East Cocalico.
Right. Okay, so let's do this. Let's amend the motion and with those 2 locations. Okay.
So the owner is located at this address.
Correct. Yep, so that's for the second property. Yep, thank you. So you want to read that?
Start over.
No, just read the second address.
Okay.
Yeah, we can amend the motion for the second address.
So the owners of the property at 9 North 7th Street, Indiana, PA, 15701. And the property we're requesting easement for is 57 West Church Street, Stevens, PA, 17578.
And I will second
All right. Thank you.
that. So we have a motion and a second. Any questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none, and both motions carried.
Stick to the script now. Okay, the next item is the 2022 roadway improvement projects, authorization to advertise. The township did receive a copy from the two of the three separate roadway project bid specifications. Contract one is a paving contract, and that's the installation of milling, pavement fabric, super paved leveling course, and super paved wearing course on Piper Hill Road, Cardinal Drive, Oil Drive, Blue Jay Drive, and Audubon Circle. Contract two is a bituminous seal coat, double application on Glenwood Drive, Fouts Lane, and Keeler Avenue. And project three is a micro surface, which is the installation of a polymer modified emulsified asphalt type A, double application on Hill Road between Winding Way and Smokestown Road. The board, once the board authorizes these, it will be advertised and it will be open on March 30th. And then the board can consider action based on the responses for bids at your meeting in April. So there's, for the board's consideration, as a motion authorized for two to advertise the 2022 roadway project. Invitation to bid for contract number one, 2022 roadway paving projects, contract number two, between the seal code, and contract number three, Michael.
Like, can we put the details of that data
On our website? Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, let's, can we do?
Sure.
You okay with that, Jeff? Lorenzo? Yeah, because we did that in the past. That way the information's out there, and anyone in the public or anybody wants to see what the specifics are for the
Yeah.
bid, they're all out there. Thank you. Okay, so I will make a motion to authorize the two to advertise the 2022 roadway projects invitation to bid for contract number one is the 2022 roadway paving projects. Contract number two, the bituminous seal coat, and contract number three is the micro surface. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. Any questions?
Yeah, actually one for me, for Mike and Ken, with the pipelining project that's going on. Are we certain that there's nothing to dig up in the roadways there at this point? Jumping in, ready to blacktop and
Well, that's an interesting question. We don't know yet what they're gonna find when they clean out the pipes and then do a video inspection of them.
are they all located outside of the curb or inside?
A lot of them are inside the curb.
We do have time, though. I mean, we did work in time for when the project will start. So if we do televise and find that, that's something that we can mobilize on within the time frame of this start.
So we will have time.
Yeah, because there's also some property owners who were notified that have to do some curb improvements, and we want to make sure they have enough time to do those before the roadway project starts. So the key is getting the televising done and just seeing if we have something that can't be lined in one of those streets. And then we would mobilize it.
Oh, yeah, understood.
And that's why we put a little bit of a sort of a delay in the start of the project, but we want to get.
A little bit of a buffer, right? And we're confident the camera work will be done for that.
Yeah, we were initially hoping that the camera work done by the end of February. What's held up a bit has been the getting these agreements signed. So we're just about there, and we have a plan in place at the last agreement.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's good.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so Mike, resolution 2022-04.
Yeah, we talked about this at the last meeting. There was a draft resolution that was drawn up and submitted. The solicitor reviewed it. The solicitor indicated no concern with the concept or the specific language in the draft resolution. Essentially, this is a resolution to give authority for the township to process general customary disbursements that are due prior to a next board of supervisors meeting, and then a mechanism for having those presented at that meeting so that everybody sees what was paid. So we initially looked at a couple different areas, and this is one thing the board will have to decide. You have multiple copies of this resolution that you can take action on. One was kind of created to get the language started, a $10,000 limit, trying to make sure that if anything was done in that, it had sort of an upper level as to where that would be, what we would pay off. We did find though, when health insurance falls within that time and some life insurance, some other items, that those numbers far exceed 10,000. So the board could consider the usual and customary payments that are budgeted and approve that limit up to 100,000. Or you can look at one that does not include a limit, but it just makes sure that the items that are going to be paid will be something that is budgeted and is a usual customary. So it's rare that we're going to find that. It's just going to be on those occasions when our meetings are off and we get our bills. The health insurance is probably the big one. I think the other one, Jeff, was lease for the truck payment, correct?
Yeah, that came in at 21,000 or something, so that exceeds the $10,000 limit. The healthcare was substantially more than that. The problem becomes that the mail service has gotten slow. Bills show up sometimes 10, 11 days after they're mailed out from whoever the vendor is, whether it's the healthcare or somebody else. So it doesn't give us enough time to turn them around quickly. It seems like certain businesses don't recognize postmarks anymore when it comes to return envelope. So, we just have to have a way to turn some of these things around. So, I think these are several different options here for us to consider.
And keep in mind, the mechanism remains the same. You still need 2 supervisors to sign off on a check. So it isn't as if it's going to be, the manager and the financial administrator signing and then coming back to discuss those. Really, the big item is that we just wanted to have a mechanism in place to handle that, as well as then to make sure that it's those disbursements that are approved and released by the manager are submitted to the board at the next public meeting, so the public's aware of what's approved and what's paid. So as I mentioned, you have the limit, you can go 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, or you could take the one that says approve and release all usual and budgeted disbursements, which become due and payable in the intervals between public meetings. Yeah, I mean, the worst thing you want to get is to set something and then we have a situation come up and then we're starting around with it.
Yes, I can go first here. A couple of points. One of the things here for the public's understanding also is Mayor Dussel comes in and audits us every single. So when Mayor Dussel comes in and does the audit for us, they of course will look at this and find that this is sufficient. So that's something that from a mindset for the public to know that this is customary, it's applicable, and it's acceptable.
Well, and let me add to that, there's one of the recommendations that was made was 2 signatures on every check, and that is now what we've instituted here for the last year plus.
So with that being said, then I'm okay with the unlimited resolution, but Mike, I really want to add in there. It says township manager, quote, township manager with authority to approve and release all usual and budgeted disbursements. I'd like to change that to all usual and customary, usual, customary and budgeted disbursements. So that we're clear that those are disbursements that are common to our business and what we've already done.
That works for me.
Okay?
So.
Okay. Thoughts?
Well, yeah, there again, it says delegates the township manager the authority. The manager has the authority, treasurer and assistant treasurer have to have the signature. There's plenty of safeguards.
So, yeah, I will make a motion to adopt resolution 2022-04, resolution for the Board of Supervisors of East Cocalico, Lancaster County, to authorize the township manager to approve operating disbursements that may become due payable prior to the Board of Supervisors' official review and approval. And resolution then will read exactly as follows. Resolution number 20 Resolution number 2022-04. A resolution of the Board of Supervisors of East Cocalico Township, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, authorizing the township manager to approve operating disbursements that may become due and payable prior to the Board of Supervisors' official review and approval. Whereas Article 7, Section 704 of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Second Class Township Code specifies that the township treasurer shall pay out all monies of the township only on direction by the Board of Supervisors. And whereas the East Cocalico Township Board of Supervisors officially approves expenditures of the township at its public meetings normally held on the first and third Thursdays of each month. And whereas Article 13, Section 1301 of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Second Class Township Code allows the Board of Supervisors to delegate any of its non-legislative powers and duties to the township manager. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of East Cocalico Township, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, delegates to the township manager the authority to approve and release all usual, customary, and budgeted disbursements which become due and payable in the intervals between public meetings. A report of all such disbursements approved and released by the township manager will be submitted to the Board of Supervisors at its next scheduled public meeting. Resolved by the Board of Supervisors of East Cocalico Township, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, this day of, and then our signatures. Okay.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Doug Mack. Hey, RC, you're right to know, I heard what Jeff said about the mail, but I'm looking at the bills that I got. Copies of the ones I asked for, and some of them came in on like the 13th of this one came in on actually the 17th of December, and the treasurer didn't even look at it until the 30th. There's a couple in here that are at least 10 days out after they're received, they're stamped received. And then when the treasurer, in this case it was Jeff, signed his initial to put the date down, it was a week and a half late. So, you know, you guys are shooting yourself in the foot already. And part of my right to know was how many late fees did we incur last year? It's not an astronomical amount of money when you're looking at $6 million budget. But my bigger concern is because we turned in 18 statements that were late. We got late charges on 18 statements. 9 of them were from Winston. The total for the year was $271. Now, that's not a lot of money, but it's not zero, it's our money. And again, that goes back to how's that going to affect our standing with bonds? You start paying bills late, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out what they're gonna do.
This will leave.
And, but again, still in the record 13 days for you to get in there and sign the check. I find that hard to believe.
What was the date on the last meeting in December?
The last meeting was, I don't know, but the bills here stamped the 17th of December, and you didn't sign it for the 30th.
I believe the check run had to be done a day and a half prior to being advertised on the internet and on the website as specified. You can't expect, I don't expect our financial person to do that, get it done, because the law says it has to be advertised 24 hours now prior to the meeting. So it just doesn't work out in the time frame. And that date is one of those cases.
We never had these problems before. We never had late charge.
Okay.
And like I said, it's only 270 hours to do it there. But it's still, it's 12 times you gotta pay a bill that you're getting gig going when you go to borrow money.
And this will leave.
Right, so you gotta go down.
This will leave. We'll be doing it.
It'll alleviate from this point forward. You've already done that.
We're solving the problem. Sir.
Yes, sir.
Alan Maxwell, just a curious question. Do any of our vendors that you're referring to that sometimes take 10, 12 days to email, to mail them to us, offer digital submission of those invoices where we would alleviate the delay?
There are some that do. And we've looked into that as well. There becomes, I think Mike, Judy had told us there's a little bit of a question about Mayor Dussel and the auditing of the paperwork there.
Yeah, I think it's sort of trying to make sure that you have everything following that process, so everybody feels comfortable with things that are being paid, that are being reviewed, and you're also obviously trying to balance. You don't want to give $1 to anybody. You know, a lot of times, some of the vendors, you can't get, UGI, and any of them to do that. And a lot of times, I think a couple of ones that Doug mentioned were PPO and UGI were on that list. I think the other. So you try to, often you can pay those and cross it out. It just starts to get when you have 16 accounts and then you're crossing out. It's taking a lot of time to check a balance. Do you owe $32 or you owe $64 2 months in that? So we try to work where we can, but also trying to be very aware of the community wanting to see that this goes through a check and balance so that things aren't being paid and they shouldn't be paid and everything's reviewed. Just to go back, Doug, that one that you read there, I think the reason why the December meeting was the 16th. So the bill came in the 17th. The next meeting after that wasn't until January 3rd. So what happens is they get compiled then, and then they were put on for that January 3rd meeting to do the approval. Actually, I think we were at that point, we actually did approve paying, the board took action in December, so on authorizing payment, I thought at the end of the month after everyone got a chance to review it.
Yeah.
So we then were counting everything in December and paying it out 2021 and not pushing things over to 2022. But really, this process again is we're trying these different ways to make sure we're very sensitive to the fact that everyone feels comfortable with what's being paid. There's a process in place, and how do we minimize that happening? Because I agree, $5 is too much to avoid not having to pay $5.
Thank you. Any other questions? Right, so we have the motions. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. The motion carries.
Okay, I only have a couple items. But the Purple Heart, which is on here, we actually may have resolved this situation today. This is one of the trash haulers in the township that had not signed their 2022 hauler agreement. And we've sent them multiple letters, multiple emails, and multiple telephone calls. They have about 100 residents in the township who are contracted with them. So I called today and just said I was going to present to the board tonight that we would draft a certified letter, give it until the next board meeting to get that in, or else we would then I would recommend the board take action to essentially suspend and revoke their license. Probably about an hour later, we got a call saying it was signed and it's in the mail. So hey, I want to jump ahead. Let's wait till we get it before we do it. But really, the goal is to get that in place to make sure everyone's operating under the same guidelines. And the last thing you want to do is have to try and contact 100 property owners in the township and tell them they need to switch their hauler. That's not the easiest thing to do. So hopefully Purple Heart has done what they said they would do. And if not, we'll just talk about it at the next meeting. But I think that'll be the other item, real quick, is in the back for people, since there's some new faces here tonight, we do have a survey form from the Cocalico Regional Comp Plan update. It's both in paper form and there's a link on the township website and the county planning commission website. If you haven't done so, fill it out, let your voices be heard, help direct where East Cocalico and the Cocalico region is going to go for the next 20 years. Takes about 15 minutes. It's something you probably enjoy doing if you ever wanted to be a planner. You can do it now from sitting at home and really have an impact on our community. So make sure you fill that out. I think we have it's going to be open to Sharon for 2 more weeks. I believe.
Yes.
So don't wait. Try to do it because I'm sure like the website may crash in 2 weeks or I was trying to get that in.
When I came in, I took.
I'm sorry, name.
Jerry Hartranft.
Thanks, sir.
There's no other papers back there.
Okay.
Get them.
Well, the easier thing too is go on the website, East Cocalico's website. It's right there. You click on it, it takes you right to it. You can fill it out all online. And if you want, there's also copies at the township building as well. Or if somebody doesn't want to go online and do it, send me an email and I can send it out to you. Yeah, I'm glad we took it. Last thing, just a quick update. I'm sure Brett, our Brett Hoffman, the roadmaster, will talk about it the next meeting, but we did have 2 of our road employees take the course and get their certification for pesticides application. So we are certified and we'll be spraying weeds in the township from this spring.
Certified.
Yeah, exactly. So that's all I have.
You sure you didn't want to add one more?
No, I figured let's get to this discussion.
Just checking. Okay, Chief.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I only have a few things on the agenda. So the first one is in reference to a hiring request. I'd like to hire an additional police officer, taking our complement, and we were at full complement to 17 officers, and we including myself from 16. So I did kind of looked at the schedule, did analysis of the schedule, analysis of the structure of the department, with training, especially with all the new officers and with all the trainings that have opened up since COVID was eased. And several of the trainings are week-long training. It seems as if we're always kind of an officer down, either having somebody on vacation or having someone in training or all those things that go on in the police department. We also work permanent shifts, which is something that I think has helped tremendously in reference to sick time. I think it's helped morale tremendously. So we work 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. for patrol. And so if somebody takes off or there's an illness or an injury on one of those shifts, sometimes we're limiting ourselves on who can fill those shifts. It does happen on a weekend if someone's on a 3-day weekend and midnight shift is short, somebody from day shift will cover. But it's becoming apparent and a little more difficult to fill those shifts for time. We are lucky, thankfully, that we have no one out on injury and haven't for a while. But if that occurs, that will put us behind, behind the 8 ball again. So my request is to hire an additional officer. I asked the financial administrator to work up the numbers in reference to that. She included that as individual being under the single health coverage. So that will change things in reference to what she worked up, but it's approximately $84,000 to $85,000 with single health coverage for that officer. but I think it would tremendously help. And I am somewhat concerned about the morale of the department in reference to always covering overtime, having to cover overtime, forcing people to cover overtime. I don't suspect that we're going to have something again where we have several people out for a pandemic type illness, but that happened and everybody rallied and we got through without an issue. But I'm looking to the future. I'm seeing the building that is going on or supposed to be going on in the near future. So my request would be to hire a 17th officer for the department.
Chief, just for clarification, when you went to 16, was that full contingent or not at that point?
It allows us to have two officers and a supervisor.
But it didn't cover the full. Sorry.
Well, it provides for 3 officers for the 4 different shifts we have. So right there's 12. We have some supervisory staff, you have the detective staff, you have my position. So I don't want to promote at this point a second detective because the administrative staff is stepping in as that and also doing administrative work. So we have that covered. This would be more to create a shift that would be somewhat flexible within the contract, within the confines of the police contract, but somewhat flexible where we could have somebody on a different shift than the 6A to 6P or 6P to 6A and have them cover when I would need to. We know a vacation's coming up, we know a training's coming up. I would ask that officer to slide into that shift and cover.
Yeah, okay, so that answers my question, because my understanding as we've been talking about this is they're stretched pretty thin. And really, there's no margin for error if somebody gets sick or injured or somebody goes that way.
That's the basis for my request to hire that completely additional. We do have a sergeant that is in the planning stages of probably retiring in May. He has not submitted any paperwork, so I don't need to speak out of turn. But I think there's a likelihood on that. This is not a hire to replace him. This would be an addition to that.
Let me ask another question then. The current, let me call it market dynamics in law enforcement in the country, right? Your lead time now to hire an officer is running what versus 5 years?
I shouldn't answer this in a public meeting because I might have some coaching going on, but we still have someone on our list. We still actually have 2 people on our list that I'm aware of from the previous hirings that are still in this. So another reason why I'm asking tonight will be to cash in on it.
Because otherwise you're like all the other departments out there that I'm seeing billboards on Pennsylvania.
Correct.
It's the wish of the board.
Chief, we had a conversation several weeks ago where you brought up the possibility of hiring 2 officers. As one is a replacement for a retiree coming up and one is an additional. I saw some financial information regarding the additional officer, but it still left me with many questions that I'd like to sit down and discuss budget wise and some of the other odds and ends about that. I apologize for not getting back to you before that, but it never happened last meeting with the request on the floor. So, I looked at the agenda yesterday and all of a sudden here it is again. I was assuming that one officer we were talking about was for upcoming retiree.
In a way, it will fall into that, but if for some reason that officer would decide not to, it would be fulfilling my request to hire this additional officer. Again, the 14-week training, the essentially month process for background and polygraph and all the things that go on. I'm just trying to get ahead of it.
And I've noticed in the past with retirees, it seems like it just comes in maybe several weeks ahead of the date. Is that common practice that we don't plan months ahead for retirement coming up and to notify, or is it contractual, or?
No, it's not contractual, but I think they, they have a plan in mind to retire, but, life can change in an instant. So I think that's why, which is their absolute right to hold off until close to the time, just in case a life event would occur and they decide to change their mind. So I don't think that's uncommon. Hopefully, after this retirement, hopefully after this retirement, there should be a little bit of breathing room in reference to the next one coming up. Kind of at the end of that group at this point. So again, the things like the uniforms, the firearms, those type of things will be absorbed in the budget, I believe, without any major impact. That's why I didn't have Judy put it on that additional cost that I was speaking of, because I think within the budget that's already established for 2022,
Yeah,
we could easily outfit that.
and we had discussed that. There's a few incidentals, but nothing major. As long as some of the heavier gear is transferred. Yeah, I'd be all right moving ahead with the intention of replacing a retiree tonight, but still like for us to be able to sit down. This is multiple concerns about additional hire.
Well, I had the opportunity to have a discussion this morning with Chief. He laid it out pretty clear for me. Mike was there as well. I'd like to go ahead and give Chief the opportunity to hire an additional officer now, being that it is tough to get new officers right now. And like you said, we have 2 people on the list. So if we get lucky to get one of those, hopefully we can fulfill the 17th position as you requested at the beginning of the year as well. If the officer retires, great. If not, I guess you'll have your 17th officer.
And just for everybody's clarification, when I had discussions with the supervisors, I pulled them individually. There was no discussion with more than one supervisor. So that's correct.
So would you like a motion for that? I will make a motion that the chief begin the hiring process for 17 things.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
I guess I'll be an extension because I have concerns about the financials and other ancillary items.
One abstention, 2 ayes, motion passes. Thank you. Again, my concern is the lead time involved with getting highly qualified officers today is substantial. And I don't want
That's okay.
to see the billboards all over the place hiring police officers.
Okay.
So, okay. Thank you.
The other item on the agenda is the Lancaster County Drug Task Force, which we talked about. I'm not sure, Mike, what,
I'm not sure why it's on there.
Okay.
Outside of, we did talk about the last meeting, and I think really maybe just to make sure that the people who were at the last meeting who watched know that it's included bill list. And it's the dollar per person, that contribution that the municipality township makes to the drug handling spectrum.
and that's a budgeted item, so that was in our budget.
I think, Chief, I think it might have been there only in terms of letting the public, second meeting, letting the public know what that is
Okay.
and what the history. It's more of a historical, so you can say a couple of words about that. What
Sure.
that's about.
Excuse me. The
Thank you.
Lancaster County Drug Task Force is made up by county detectives and also some departments provide an officer and then they're reimbursed for that officer's salary. We currently do not have an officer in the task force. For the funding, I know there was some discussions in the past in reference to how the drug task force is funded. Again, I know that has changed with the new district attorney and reference to forfeiture funding, et cetera. But they, in the past, and East Cocalico in the past, has contributed their request of basically $1 per resident towards the drug task force to keep it functioning. Obviously, my opinion, the Lancaster County Drug Task Force is a very important tool for the county, not just for this area, but for everywhere. We work with them on occasion, and we don't always know when they're working in an area because they don't always tell us, which is fine. But it is a very important tool in combating various issues that we see currently. That would be use of methamphetamine. We are located in East Cocalico, obviously, as everyone knows, about halfway between Reading and Lancaster. And we have a highway that goes between those two. It also comes down from Allentown. And we have a turnpike entrance, exit, however you want to say it, and their work is truly important to the safety of the citizens.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions for the chief? Yes, sir.
Why isn't there any police on 222?
I'm sorry, name.
Terry Haas.
Thank you, Terry.
Why isn't there any police on 222? I traveled every day for 7 years. I can count on my two hands how many times I've seen police.
Well, we patrol 222 as a township, and I know the state police covers 222 also, where they run speed enforcement. We have run numerous speed enforcement details on 222. Several of them have been at night with speeds upwards of close to 100 miles an hour. So we know it's not the greatest. The tools that we have, because the Pennsylvania legislature, and I don't want to get on a soapbox, but has not allowed, for the only state in the country that is not allowed for municipal police officers to use radar. So we cannot use that tool on 222. So we have to use what's called a B-spec, where we'd be pacing somebody, or they would be going between two lines or objects, or we have to use what's called an NRAD unit, which we do for many of our speed details. And that takes an officer to run it and an officer to go after the violator. When we do use that, we usually have 2 officers that do that. So not having radar sometimes, and it really ties our hands of running speed enforcement on 222.
Well, the speed limit is how much?
65.
And why does everybody do 20?
I think I probably have the answer to that. I don't think we're right now somewhere. But I'm not trying to make light of it. I know that. I understand that. I see it. It occurred. Again, it's part of the process. I thought the radar bill was going to pass last year. It did not. Hopefully this year it might. We can try and get that speed down.
Who gives the okay to do 75? It happens all the time. People who go to court right down the street. You never stay for 67, 68.
Well, in Pennsylvania, we have to give, as municipal police officers, we have to give, this is something I normally broadcast, but we have to give, 10 miles an hour of speed. State police have to give 5 miles an hour of speed.
And why are they opposed to it?
Well, if they would post it at 75. And again, I'm not trying to make light of it, please don't take it that way. I don't mean it.
My question is, who grants the 10 mile an hour?
That would be the state legislature. That has nothing to do with us. That's it all.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Okay.
Just a couple of things. The monthly zoning officers report, which I don't think probably had for a while. For the month of February, there were 16 applications received. We're talking building and zoning combined. 25 permits issued. Obviously, some of those including Pennsylvania and Oregon. 12 false alarm violations. We have a zoning board application coming up next Wednesday. With that information in your packet, I don't remember if I talked to you about this earlier. The address is 94 Adamstown Road, rear. It's a property that is vacant currently. The owners want to build a house on it, and it doesn't have any road frontage. It's a landlocked parcel, and our ordinance requires that it have road frontage. So they're going for variance to allow them to build on that. And there's a private lane basically that serves a bunch of houses back there. So that's the subject of that variance. Also, we did have a pre-application meeting last week with, and they've given permission for us to say this in public, with the owners of the Park Place Diner and a development company. The owners, because their partners, want to split the property. They're going to subdivide it so that the Park Place Diner would remain the diner. But the area that is, what I'm going to call the Nettis Park, would be about 30 acres would be carved off of that. And the developer is interested in and came to talk to us about doing a warehouse distribution center on it, which would of course require a rezoning because it's so commercial, and as you know from the plat force process, it would require zoning to light industrial. So the developer did come to the planning commission meeting Monday also just to explain their interest in that. They're also, I guess they're thinking maybe, obviously it's not huge track, so maybe 200,000 square feet is what they have to get out of it. There's obviously grade challenges there, and whatever would occur, whatever kind of development would occur there, obviously they're going to move forward, I'm sure, with subdividing that property. Whether it's commercial or something else, they would need to get access to that property off of Hill Road, opposite the new Hill Road, whatever that eventually gets called, besides the new Hill Road. So the access would be directly across from the piece that the segment that would be created as part of the realignment that will be done for the Black Horse warehouse project. You know, that would be the case, but also, Mr. Mineta told us he did also purchase that piece on the property. I think it's, I don't think that piece could possibly be 3 acres, but it's got, it's been apparently a bunch of uses, most recently a barber shop. There's a little blue building there. Okay, so he purchased that and he's got, you know, some thoughts about potentially doing something with that. I don't know whether he's thinking of adjusting lot lines with the diner property as part of that bigger subdivision plan. Probably something restaurant related also there. But of course, access that close to that intersection would be the challenge there as well.
Thank you. Any questions?
Okay. Just one quick question. How many zoning how many zoning violations have you had in the last, just in February?
I do not have anything regarding violations on that report that I received from the department, which I think is interesting.
I was just gonna say, just, and I thought maybe I missed it, but it's
Yeah,
very odd that.
I mean, I know that Eddie is, has been investigating complaints, and I don't know whether he didn't list them on here because he hasn't taken formal enforcement action or what, but he definitely has gotten complaints and he's been investigating some things. I know that for a fact because we've talked about some. There's been some barking dogs stuff, there's been some trash, that sort of thing.
Is that something you follow up and weekly or?
I don't, at this point, I let him, I'm assuming that he's taking care of that stuff unless I hear otherwise. But I will in this instance because I'm surprised that I don't have anything on the report about that.
Alan Maxwell, with the potential of this new project for Mineta's and 30 acres being developed again, I think we need to revisit the feasibility of rerouting Hill Road. Black Horse project brought that up for their own benefit, but with this other project coming in, I'm not sure that that is a feasible alternative, especially using township land for a commercial project. So that does have to go across township property in order to have that become a reality.
I think right now, this is just a concept.
Yeah. Well, we still haven't heard anything from Black Horse project in quite a while. We don't know where they stand with that development.
I can
But with
update
this
you on
potential
that.
here, I think it's worth revisiting that idea to see what's best for the township resident.
I can update you on that.
Okay.
Black Horse, the engineer is moving forward with designing the project, the land development project. But it's a pretty big project to design, as you can imagine. They've been doing soil testing for stormwater and for bearing capacity of roads and things like that. They actually were supposed to do some soil testing on the township property last few days, but as far as I know, they haven't been there. Actually, they're supposed to be there yesterday. In the area where the road would, the realigned road would go through. They have shown us an updated version of the plan that everyone saw during the rezoning hearing. We actually did have a Teams meeting with the engineer and their traffic engineer about that. So the location is primarily the same, but now they're trying to put in a stormwater facility to handle stormwater runoff from the road itself. But all of that location wise is gonna depend on the, the soils, there along that fence line, of the neighbor's property. So the exact location hasn't been pinned down yet, but the configuration is, more or less the same as what they showed. So, I will say that configuration, I think I'd always assumed that there would be something eventually probably developed on the Minnetta's property, but without knowing what would potentially go there, it, depending on the use, the traffic counts from that could be really all over the place. So it's just really way too early to tell.
Oh, yeah.
But the Black Horse folks are working. It's just that this part of the process takes a lot of time.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Chad Weaver, you had referenced 12 lawn violations, I believe you had said. Could you tell us how many of them are police department versus fire and any funds generated from that? Either one?
I can't, but I can get the information.
Yeah, we'd like the fire chiefs would like to know that, actually. That's one of our topics too.
I don't, because do you have any idea what they're typically police and fire?
I submit hours, but I don't submit fire department false alarms. Do you?
We were told they get pulled by somebody in the township, so that's why we're kind of curious if that is happening and who's doing it. Because
Okay,
we do not, and we're not asking for that to be done, so we're trying to figure out the gray area there.
So for the chiefs, how do you guys prefer to see that? Is it monthly, quarterly?
The what? The violations
The
or?
violation?
We're actually not in favor of that ordinance as the three chiefs. For the fire department. There's multiple reasons why alarms go off, and most simply of that is if they get hit by their own personnel moving equipment or something like that. So that's why we're kind of curious what that ratio is and what they do. It should be a base by base for us on which alarm it is and who it is. And if they're a habitual offender that we're there 20 or 30 times a year, that something needs to be done, but.
I'll find out. I have absolutely no idea.
So that is one of our topics we had just discussed here recently. I think we had Mike involved in that a little bit. So you can find some data on that.
How about we just start with a baseline and get you the data? on
Yeah,
what
just
we have?
provide some data sometime if you can, and give us something to discuss.
Okay.
Thank you.
Chad, from that end, you guys think you'd be able to, I know there was, during that discussion, there were some that were a minor type thing, or, it was triggered for a valid reason, and others that weren't. Would you guys be able to, and Donnie, you're here as well, even as we develop that process, be able to make sure the town's aware on a monthly basis of those?
We probably can if that's the route we want to go. And I guess that's why I want to see what for data you guys do or don't have and how you're getting that.
Right, because that may eliminate some of that angst with the,
Correct.
with the ordinance, at the same time, making sure that both sides know exactly.
Correct.
what that number is.
Thank you. Thanks, Sharon.
Sure.
Okay, MS4. Ken.
Yes, this Saturday we have a live stake workshop. What that is we have an expert coming in and is going to talk about how to protect stream banks from erosion. The idea that's for backyard stream banks, people that have streams running through their own properties. Live staking is a method where you take branches off a plant early in the spring and you basically just stick them in the ground down near the water line and they'll root and grow. You don't have to do anything fancy. You just stick in the ground that has live buds on it and they'll grow. So you can use that to protect stream banks. But there are a lot of other methods used for protecting streams. And so we have a workshop this Saturday at 9 at the Township Building. Anyone who's interested in coming, you're welcome to come. We have, I believe, 18 participants thus far. The ones who registered in advance are getting some free live stakes for their own use. Now it's too late to do that, but you can still come and learn about them if you're interested in doing that. Okay, second item, the MS4 pollution reduction plan. The township's pollution reduction plan, which is part of the MS4 program, is requirements from the state on how much we have to do to reduce the amount of sediment going into streams in the township. And as those of you who've been following this know, we've worked on something we've called FS4, which is basically involving farmers doing practices on farms that cut the amount of sediment going in. Now, those practices weren't listed in our original plan, which was developed before I came on with the township. And in order to count them, we have to update that plan. And so Land Studies is working with us. It's apparently not a big deal. We can file an amendment. We don't have to do the whole thing over again, but it does need to be done. And so we started that process. Next item, the domain name. The current domain name for all the township emails and the website is eastcocalicotownship.com, fully spelled out. And so I sit opposite the zoning officer whose email address is zoning_officer@East Cocalico. So I sit there listening to him explain this to people over the phone a bunch of times during the day. And it's like, why are we doing this? So I was able to locate a much shorter domain name. It's a new one that hasn't been around that much, but in advance of hoping to be able to do this, I went ahead and purchased the domain name so that nobody else can take it. Cost me all of $6, I think. And it's ect.town to replace eastcocalicotownship.com, which is a whole lot fewer letters. And what we can do is set that up as an alias so that people sending emails or going to our website can type that ect.town instead of the other one. The earlier one will still exist. All the emails for the old one will still exist, but we can use this for communication where we don't want to have to spend 5 minutes explaining what our email address is. And so what we need is authorization to have our IT consultants, custom computer, take over the basically, I'll transfer that domain name to them and they can set it up as an alias. So it won't change any of the existing stuff. You'll simply be able to use that in addition. And to me, that's going to save me a lot of effort. I know should be easier for others, but we need board authorization to make that change.
Anything that I don't have to type that long.
Okay.
I put my full name in there, Ken. I'm in the same, it's gotta be 40 letters.
Yeah, so your shorter email could be rc@ect.town. Which would probably help.
Yeah, the way you're explaining this, there's probably going to be no confusion between the two.
No, I mean, they'll both still work and continue to in the future.
Yeah.
It's just, there's a shorter option if you authorize this.
So either way, still would work.
Correct.
Okay.
That's the easiest one you came up with, I guess. You purchased it already. That was a pretty big expense.
Yeah, really. And yes, I'll donate it to the township.
That was my next question. Is there a reimbursement request coming?
No.
Ken, it's called a command decision. Good job. Make the call, run with it.
Okay.
Mike, do you need a motion? for
Yeah,
that?
we should do that motion. Ken, from a motion as essentially, it's just going to be a motion to authorize the township to change the domain name.
To add that additional, it's an alias is what it is. It's another way to access the same email or website.
There's the others. And I'll make that motion. Any questions? Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, none. The motion carries.
Yeah, I'll contact custom and get them to start the process of putting that into play. Okay, next item, meetings held at fire companies. Historically, the Zoom broadcasts that we do from the fire companies, we've had a lot of trouble with people being able to hear. We spent quite a bit on an audio upgrade for the chambers, and it's my understanding from the people who've been out on Zoom that it's much better than it had been. For the meetings at the fire companies, basically we do them 3 times a year. And the bids we were getting to get an upgraded audio system ran into the thousands of dollars. And my suggestion, which is just up for discussion, is that since we now have the Zoom capabilities, that we consider discontinuing the meetings at fire companies, hold them all at the township building, and then anyone who doesn't want to come to the township building can still attend by Zoom. Or if the fire companies are interested, we could do what was done back during the pandemic, and that is a laptop at any of the fire companies could be hooked into Zoom, and someone can go to the fire company if they wanted rather than the township building, which would be another option. But that's just a discussion item. We had one couple that was on the meeting tonight that complained that they couldn't hear and then eventually logged off. And so we've had that all along. I don't know whether it's their hardware causing the problem of someone else. Actually, Lisa, the recording secretary, is also on the meeting tonight, and she said it can be a little faint, but she isn't having any trouble hearing. So it's partly equipment dependent on the other end too, but we obviously can't control that. So it's just a discussion item.
Yeah, maybe the chiefs can remind me here, or even Doug around. I think one of the reasons that I remember also that we decided to go to the fire department format and a round robin format was to give visibility to the fire companies, to get the community to understand that there's these 3 fire companies out here that are supporting them and give them some more visibility. I understand the technology challenges. I personally like the aspects surrounding giving them the visibility. I also like the aspect of, again, in transparency and flexibility, and given all these broad avenues we can give to the community in terms of where to have these meetings and how to have them. So.
I'd like to add to that too. It's just, I'd rather have 6 meetings at the fire company instead of 3. You know, just, I think it's a great way to get the community together. Matter of fact, tonight, we'd probably be sitting out on the street at the township building because there's not enough room for all of you. And I wish every meeting was like this. It's great to bring the community together twice a month, you know. And again, like what RC said, you know, letting people know that, you know, we have 3 fire companies and they're all volunteer and they're always a phone call away. And you know, with the technology, tell them to put some ear pods in it at home or something, maybe they'll hear instead of trying to get it off their little cell phone speaker. Try that maybe. But if it's only this year, like 3 times a year, maybe those 3 times a year, they can actually come out and see what the fire companies are all about for that particular meeting. But I'd personally like to see it continue.
I guess I'd just throw it out to the crowd, it's the wish of the people. You know, we're here to serve the people, and anybody that's got comments here, I'd like to hear them.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
you could throw, I agree with what Mr. Bernard said. Honestly, I think everyone should be held either at one of the fire halls or somewhere else that's not the township building. More space, more room for parking is one great concept of it all, but people are a little more prominent to come to something like this than come to the township building that's dark and gloomy.
You do have fresh paint on the wall.
We are working on that. We are working on that. There's nice bright white paint.
Yes, sir.
Alan Maxwell, the biggest complaint I had when we're at the township meetings is there's only one microphone. And unfortunately, not everyone is blessed with my type of voice that can pretty much be heard anywhere. With the access of just one or two additional mics, or a mic in the center front, pick up more, because you guys are the furthest away from the mic. And a lot of the complaints I have when we were at Fire Hall with Zoom is can't hear you guys because you're so far away from the mic. So mic placed at the front of the room tied in, is there a way to do that inexpensively without
The system,
thousands of
the
dollars?
system we put in Chambers, which was over $4,000, now has 5 microphones across the front where the board is,
And it has.
and a multi-part microphone array that hangs in the middle of the room, and did wonders for the sound. Now, we could do a similar thing here. It's going to cost us at least several $1,000s to do that. And my question was, does the township want to spend several $1,000s for something we do 3 times a year? Now, maybe we do, and it's fun. That's not my call. I would just want to discuss the issue.
I happen to agree with Mr. Bernard that 6 times in the fire hall would not be a bad thing. Just because of the size of the crowd that you see here, we don't get this kind of attendance when we're at the township building. Parking is tight. It's not, it's very hot most nights once the meeting gets started. It's just very uncomfortable. We're here, there's room for people to talk, socially distance if they feel the need to. But I agree with you. I think 6 times in the fire halls is not overkill. And in fact, more would not be a bad thing.
Why would we need to spend thousands of dollars at multiple locations when you could just have one mobile microphone that could be passed around for instances like this, or have one that sits closer to you guys and one that can be mobile within the house?
There are technical reasons why that's a problem because of using the internet, Zoom, or any of the other platforms. If you start using multiple microphones that aren't tied into all the same audio system, you get echoes, severe echoes as you start talking. And it just technically it doesn't work. For it to work, you have to have all those microphones tied back to preamplifiers, which are combined together and then go into the computer into Zoom with just one feed from all the microphones combined. Now, we can do that, it's just expensive.
Not other people there, anybody else?
The only reason this microphone can't be closed with supervisors, that's what people want to hear. They can
Yeah,
always
but if-
repeat the question.
But that was the problem we had before, is we had the microphone up front and then people complained you couldn't hear people talking from the back of the room. You can't get both from one microphone. You either choose which one do you want, or you spend the money to get a much better system.
Is it an option to use the sound system in the fire departments? With a microphone in the fire departments, it would come through their speakers and be picked up by this mic.
In this particular fire department, that will work. I had mics for every one of them guys that come down from the speakers. I cannot speak for the others.
I mean, if we're gonna use the fire departments and they already have facilities in there that might be a benefit to us, let's investigate that rather than spend thousands of dollars to upgrade this system, use existing facilities.
It's still gonna have to all be tied together through a preamplifier to get a single feed into the computer and Zoom or whatever platform we're using. Because you can't just have multiple microphones connected around the room, because that's what generates the echo.
No, I was referring to using their speakers and just having that mic pick it up and put it out through Zoom. So one
And
mic here.
we could do it with one mic that you have to walk around the room. And so if you want to have a discussion, someone at that end of the room wants to discuss something, you have to walk the microphone to the other side of the room and hand it to the other person to allow them to talk. Now, if that's what you want, I mean, that can certainly be done, and it's a cheaper alternative. But it's not very
Here's
satisfying.
what I propose we do. Ken,
Mhm.
let's do an analysis. It doesn't hurt. Let's see what's at every fire department. Okay?
Mhm.
First thing we do is let's see what equipment's at every fire department. Is it even feasible that that equipment can be used with the MUX?
Mhm.
Okay, to multiplex all those signals to the one signal. You gotta have one audio in. Number two, if the equipment's not feasible, what's the cost of upgrading the fire company's equipment so that it is feasible for fire?
Right.
And then we can have a discussion in terms of what is the cost, because as the chief said in the back, I don't know what's at the other companies. They may be starting from scratch. They may have a system that works fantastic. So the cost of every department may be fairly broad in terms of what the cost is to get this at the caliber we now have it at the township. Okay? That's what I think we should do. As the next step.
Okay, I'll work on getting quotes from that, for that.
Get bright white for the paint at the,
So.
Thank you, Ken.
Okay, and one other item, as part of the upgrades we're doing, we're getting some wiring done, or we want to get some wiring done so that we can have the TV in the front of chambers, not have all the wires hanging down the wall. We need a wired network connection where we're running the Zoom from. And we also want to have the ability to do Zoom meetings in our conference room. So we've gotten bids to do the wiring, get network connections into those various places. What I'm suggesting is that we take the existing TV in chambers now, which is a 65-inch, that it be moved into the conference room to set up Zoom in there, and then replace it with a slightly larger TV screen in chambers, which would probably be about an 85-inch. And checking prices on them, they've come down for an 85-inch 4K TV. You can get one from between $1,500 and $2,000. I mean, get them all the way up to $5,000, but with stuff we don't really need.
I'd like to add to that, we had discussion about it, upgrading all the wiring and stuff that still would have left a big HDMI cable going from a laptop to the screen.
Up the wall to the screen,
Yes, so our current TV in chambers is not a smart TV, and they call that a smart TV. Now they have smart TVs that are fairly inexpensive as well. And
What I was talking about, they're Wi-Fi enabled. You can go
mirror-
wirelessly to
you can
the
mirror whatever's on the screen to the TV. So he's saving somewhat of money of running an HDMI cable, who knows how long.
Right, we wouldn't need to run that wiring. The other thing we would probably want to do is get a small, probably a 24-inch computer monitor and set it on the table up front so that the board can see it and don't have to spin 180 degrees to see what's on the wall behind them. That you can get for like 120.
Let me update your numbers as of yesterday. We got one for our offices. Walmart, 75 inches, we paid $648 for 4K HD. 4K HD smart TV, $648.
Right, the 75s are significantly cheaper than the 85s. If that's what we want, I mean,
You gotta measure it, because I think 75 is pretty big.
it's 10 inches, it's 10 inches bigger than what we've got. We have 65.
What would the purpose be for putting one back in the conference room?
So that we can use that for Zoom meetings, which we've been doing. We've had a lot of Zoom meetings lately, but we've had to do them at someone's desk using their laptop, or it's just kind of awkward.
Rather than in chambers?
I mean, they could be done in chambers, but the chambers setup is set up for doing a large group at a big table, not 2 or 3 people talking. I mean, it can be done that way, but it's a little less practical. Right, the existing TV would move to the conference room.
Any other questions for Ken?
we'll need action if you wanna. And Ken, are you looking for action, Ken?
If you want, while we're in the process of doing the repainting and moving everything, it would probably be a good time to move the TVs if we're gonna do that.
So I think
We need to check pricing on that stuff. But it would, my estimate from what I could find is it would be probably between 1,500 and 2,000 for an 85-inch.
if you want to do that, yeah.
So I would get a choice, for 75 and 85. $700 versus $1,800. I'd rather get the $700 one.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, let's get the prices.
Check.
All right.
When you can authorize one to make that purchase.
Yeah, we'll put it all together, because there's gonna have to be some wiring done. So why don't we just package the whole thing, you guys can take a look at it.
Thanks, Ken.
Oh, okay. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay, the list of bills is as presented is a total general fund of $165,085.73. Any questions resulting from that?
Alan Maxwell, just a quick question. I see there's a line item there under the tax collector. Is that a reimbursement for office equipment in addition to what was already budgeted for the year, or
That falls within the budget.
within the budget? Okay, thank you.
Yes, there was, I think some training there, certification. I guess it says joining the Association of Tax Collectors and a capital purchase of a piece of equipment falling within budget lines.
Thank you.
Anybody else? See nothing, I recommend make a motion that we approve the bills as presented.
I was. We have a motion and second. Any other questions? Motion second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, none, the motion carries.
And we also have an electric payment of bills, which would be the payroll for the period of 2/13/2022 to 2/26/2022 in the amount of $93,597.20. And I make a motion to approve that.
I'll second.
So motion and second, any questions? The motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none, the motion carries. Okay. Old business.
Yeah, we, as a follow-up to the last meeting, and probably why some people are here tonight who are new faces, which is good to see. The township did authorize the township engineer to do the next study concerning the intersection at Church Street and 272, essentially looking to get a deeper dive into the roundabout option that was looked at. And that study is ongoing now. I think it was a change order of like $8,800. Engineers started that study, but there was quite a bit of comments that we saw that were coming in off of social media and through to the board and to the township. So we had listed this as an old business agenda item, just to give a fast update where we are with that, and then if there is any input from the community, the township would be more happy to hear that.
Jack Bittler, that's the primary reason I'm here. The roundabouts are seemingly popping up everywhere. They work fine if the traffic isn't significantly heavy, or if the circle is big enough that people can actually see who's exiting and who's continuing around the roundabout. I don't see that at this intersection. If you're going south on 272 and somebody's already in the circle going north on 272, you've got to wait to see if they're going to cut in front of you to go into Denver. There just isn't enough space there for you to decide if he's getting off or if he's coming across. Add truck traffic, the occasional horse and buggy, and the fact that it's an alternate route every time somebody screws up on 222. I just see this is a disaster waiting to happen. I actually threw something out on a site called East Cocalico News. Just my opinion, what I just stated, had 130 some comments in the past week. I think 2 were in favor if it's a well-designed circle. Everybody else is against. Just don't want that out there. I don't know that your constituents are big fans of roundabouts, especially if they're poorly designed.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry, there was one there.
Back corner, go ahead, sir. Name?
It's like 1990, I got T-boned there by somebody running a light from the east. 2021, I got T-boned there, somebody running a light from the west. It's a horrific intersection. Nothing's been done in all that years. I know the circle should slow some of the traffic. Are you gonna get tractor trailers and mobile homes through there? Might be a problem. But whatever you do, please don't let it die this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your work.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I drove up,
Name, please.
yes, I did. Yes.
Henry Hobbs, go ahead.
I drove the north 22, 622. Now drove the traffic in a roundabout from 10 to 11. The north and southbound lanes have more than 2 lanes wide. 622 east and westbound have 1 lane wide. 622 eastbound lanes of traffic were brutal. Traffic was on the concrete, cars, pickups, tractor trailers. Who's responsible for the concrete in the circle? When it gets cracked, it needs to be dug up and rebuilt. What happens in the spring and fall when the tractor trailers, concrete trucks, stone trucks, lumber trucks, steel trucks, wide loads, overweight loads, and extra long loads travel the roads? We have companies close by that use our roads. Why is it a single lane roundabout?
So let me address, I think you had a couple of questions in there. Let me address the first one you asked. If there's damage to the circle, the municipality repairs the damage to the circle. If there's damage to the circle because there's an accident, I'm sure there'll be a liability claim, which will then subrogate against the party that's at fault to recoup those expenses. Okay.
But the cracks and everything that comes to it, and it's time to redo it.
From an engineering analysis perspective, my understanding, as well as PennDOT's understanding from their analysis, is that the roundabouts are actually less expensive to maintain than they are signalized intersections.
Okay. When that's that, for the roundabout. How wide are the lanes?
Terry, I don't have that level of detail yet because that is only concept one.
Okay.
That's what they're looking at now in terms of phase 2. So their next step is to go to that level of granularity.
I failed to mention as well, I don't know if there's any others back there, but we did try to put together or have the engineer provide a sort of fact sheet about roundabouts and also add some specific calculations from this intersection there. So if you didn't get one, there'll be one on the township's website as well. You can read through it, a couple pages, but there were a bunch of copies back there. So
There's no, in their copies of their paperwork that I received, there's nothing in there, just that vehicle. It doesn't say anything about tractor trailers or anything. That's my question, and the low loads and the wide loads coming through a circle. That's a single lane.
I believe their calculation when they say vehicle, that's a broad description for all of those vehicles that travel that way. And it's, yeah, and it's on, yeah, it's on the fact sheet on page 3.
it's designed to facilitate tractor trailer trucks, and they, based off the traffic calculations, 8% of all the vehicles traveling through there are trucks and buses.
Sure.
I'm gonna do my own survey. I goes on about on a Monday and a Friday. Wednesdays, I don't think that's time to do a survey. That's what my plan is for right now. If you get to it, I'll get to it. Please let me know.
Be safe.
And you have every right to do the survey you want to do.
No, I drove up, I took a lot of pictures of the native tree. Like, I should do that. The lanes have to be bigger than what they're talking about, so I'll wait till the big will come to let you know.
Yeah, who's next?
Lorraine Cole.
Sorry, we'll get it.
Lorraine Cole. I'm all in favor of the roundabout, but I do have one suggestion that I was wondering if you guys can look into about a traffic light up on Fox Hill Road 272, because it is so hard to turn left from the Cocalico Creek Road or Fox Hill as it is on 272. But if you take away that light, right now we kind of wait for a break between the two lights to get to the left. So just something for you to consider doing, but I'm all for the roundabout.
Thank you. I think it was, yes, sir.
Greg Burkholder. I drive truck for a living. So I'm out on the road every day. I see things like this roundabout. I see traffic light intersections. What you're proposing here, single lane roundabout for tractor trailer use, I don't think it's gonna work for that intersection. Especially when you have 48, 50-foot trailers going through, you're gonna be running up in the center of the circle. I wasn't here for the other discussions, but I think that intersection is perfectly fine the way it is with some changes. The changes is adding a 5 single left-hand turn lane in each direction. Changing West Church Street left straight lane to a left turn lane, and the right turn lane to a straight right turn. Coming out of East Church Street with that turn light, you have an extended green for that light to turn left. I think the main cause of the traffic jam in this intersection is because the left-hand turns are not signalized. To do what I just said, if the controller box is capable of it, is $20,000 to $60,000. And you're proposing to spend $2.8 million for the roundabout here. Money could be corrected with $20,000 to $60,000. And if the current single box is not capable of adding turn lanes, to put a complete new single system in there is $350,000 to $400,000. Now we're talking about operation costs and maintenance. Nowadays, you can run that intersection by putting a couple solar panels up and using that to operate that intersection, basically at no cost. Yes, there is some maintenance. And if you looked into all of this, great, but that's my opinion. You signalize that light, that intersection properly with left-hand turn lanes, it will operate properly and traffic will flow.
Just to I'm not a traffic engineer. I just read the report when they did that. They had to look at traffic now and versus traffic 20 years from now. And the actual counts that were projected out 20 years from now, based off of the annual growth rate of 0.67%, shows that the traffic, that's going to be operating at an unacceptable level of service. So what it ended up working into was having to, which I showed here, constructing a 225-foot right turn lane and a 225-foot left turn lane northbound on 272. The same on southbound 272. And on Church, you're looking at 200-foot left turn and right turn lanes that have to go in both directions there. So essentially, you get 4 lanes in all directions based off the requirements of PennDOT to meet that traffic flow. So adding the signal and the controller, it's my understanding that you also then have to add the additional lane, and the lane queue has to be a certain length based off the traffic flow. So you still then are going to be, which you can see here, what's designed includes those additional costs of everything in the dark black is currently outside of the existing roadway, which would need to be added. And then you have those 4 lanes, and that's based off of the traffic flow counts that the engineer.
You won't have to have a right turn lane in each direction.
Based off the counts, according to the engineer.
According to
you would.
PennDOT, we have to.
Yeah.
So then on one-
Which one?
Right. Yeah, so one of the key safety constraints that the engineer was concerned about and that PennDOT reflected was, yeah, excuse me, but let me set it up because it's easier to show you here. This road here coming out of Routers by the church. Redmond's by the church. Anybody pulling out of here, they're going across 1, 2, 3 into the 4th lane. to pull out. They literally have to go across 3 lanes of traffic. Okay? So when they did the analysis, and the same over here, when they're pulling out of the station that's here and the convenience store, they're pulling out here, but if they've got to go into the other lanes, they are literally going to cross 1, 2, 3, 4 lanes of traffic.
I was now in 272, they could do a left turn.
So those were the, I'm just giving you some of the parameters that they gave in terms of the major safety concerns with that signalized intersection. Right, and that's not even then at that point, including pedestrian, Lorenzo's right, including the pedestrian walkway.
And I think I would be able to get around the single lane. Rather than or call it 50, 30 footers. So this is gonna be a single lane. What's the probability of having 2 lanes rather than? If you got that property owned by Redmond, for sale, and the other side.
Yes, sir.
Gary Martin, wondering, I don't have any strong opinions about how you do the intersection, but I was wondering, do both proposals fall within the existing right of ways, or is there land need purpose for either one of them?
Question there, answer your question in both proposals. Any improvements that have to be done here to meet the current requirements for safety and future requirements that were calculated by our engineer as well as PennDOT that confirmed them, you have to have acquisitions.
Okay, that's what I expected, but my understanding is there was no conversation with property owners about that.
No, because this is strictly in the concept phase.
Okay.
And for clarification on that, he did mention at the last meeting, the turn lane option, it's still an option, obviously, but that would take more land.
Right.
Then the roundabout.
Than the roundabout.
Oh, okay, you're saying
The turn lane option,
signalized.
yes, the signalized plan will take more land than the roundabout.
And that is, yeah, thanks for reminding me, you're absolutely right. And that specifically is because of the future projections on the traffic flow and how long those turn lanes have to be.
There's no way around that.
term, there's no way around it.
Greg Burkle.
Yes, sir.
Was there an extensive study done when the new intersection was put out there at Colonel Howard Boulevard, coming out from Turkey Hill?
Denver Road.
Denver Road, yes. Because coming out there, you have a straight and right turn lane together against the curve. And you're saying PennDOT, Pennsylvania, whoever state is telling you need a right-hand turn lane at this intersection now. I mean, yes, it requires a lot more land to do a right-hand turn lane in each direction.
Yeah, I'm not sure when that was done, but generally, anytime that was, especially here on Church and 272 both state roads. So it's going to go through PennDOT, it's going to have to be PennDOT's requirements to do that. So there is a traffic study that's done, similar to the developments that Sharon was mentioned earlier. They're doing traffic studies at all these intersections as well that may impact that development. So that also comes into play as to what types of improvements have to happen at that point. I wasn't there to see when they did that improvement, but it would have went through that type of study and that type of recommendation. And it's based on traffic counts as well, and all those components that they have out there.
And if we're probably talking, what, 3-4 hours out of the day that the traffic is most heavy at that intersection?
The peak that they had, when they looked at the two peak times, was the morning peak hour, 7:30 to 8:30, and then the PM peak hour was 4:30 to 5:30. So obviously, you get later in the night, that traffic really falls off, but they did the count back in October, taken on October 6th, and then they'll calculate all that and project it out, and that's where they came with their peak times.
And just for, again, for clarification, with the turn lane, like you move down just a little bit, this way, this way.
I'm not looking at that.
So just for clarification as well, with the turn lane, right? As we know, there's a restaurant on the corner here, and they currently have 2 driveways on the front. And the Sunoco, is that Sunoco, or they also have 2. With the turn lane, it's going to be a challenge because we're actually interfering with those properties as well. Because now you're cutting off an entrance here. You're cutting off one of the entrances to the gas station as well. So at the end of the day, you want to work with the local businesses as well. You don't want it to be a big challenge for them as well.
And that's where the earlier question someone had, that's where the interference and the acquisitions on the properties, it's actually a signalized intersection. They're actually taking up more properties.
Following up on that question. Sorry, go ahead. Following up on that question, then, why is this, I wasn't clear, is this a township expense? Or this is a state road, so why wouldn't this be PennDOT expense?
Politely, professionally, with the quorum, answer that question. The phones ring at PennDOT and no one picks up the phone. So as a result, it's a safety
They're ignoring the problem.
it's a safety hazard for the township. So if we're going to proactively reduce this safety hazard, it's up to us.
Yeah, PennDOT developed a county, a TIP program, transportation improvement program. So, the township, we tried to lobby to get this intersection on there. We're trying as well to make sure that the 222 Turnpike or Colonel Howard Boulevard and that area gets put on the tip where you're looking, I think at one point, they were talking about the diversion time there. So there's limited money and they're looking at those high impact areas to spend it. So in this case, I think the thought was, well, this has been an area that's been an issue. Is there a way that we could try to come up with a plan and maybe then help find monies to address what could improve it? And these were 2 ideas that came out, and I think as the board had said, we're looking again, we had sort of a high level look of the roundabout. The engineer's been asked to try to fine tune that a little, what that would look like, how to take these comments into effect as well. as we look to see what our options are moving forward. So that's kind of been the intent, is just, hey, we know we have an issue here. How can we make this safer and better for our?
And again, for the public's understanding, we're trying to balance costs here. So from an engineering perspective, we asked the engineer to give us 2 conceptual plans. These are concepts. Okay, so we've selected, as of now, the roundabout concept. So there has to be a lot more granularity, a lot more details now that the engineering firm's going to come back and take a look at this. What is the actual, what's the circumference and diameter of those circles? What's the actual impact to the property owners at that intersection? We just don't have that level of detail right now, because again, it has to start with the concept.
Yes, sir.
Alan Maxwell, I want to just come out and say I am for the roundabout. I travel extensively for my job to the tune of 60, 70,000 miles a year, all over the East Coast from the Midwest through. And I go through roundabouts all over the place. The one on 222 that they just put in at Maiden Creek was one of the best things they could have done to that road. Even at the peak traffic times going up through there, you have a few second delay getting through that intersection versus 5 to 10 minutes when it was controlled by a red light. There are others in the same situation. I do agree with the gentleman that the 322 roundabouts there at Milton Hershey School are horrendous. They were put in, I believe, strictly for the benefit of Milton Hershey School. They had no real benefit to the township or the residents of that area. But when a roundabout is done correctly, as the ones on 222 are, and the 2 more that they're putting in along that road to eliminate other traffic lights, they're a tremendous benefit. There's one in New Stanton I travel to that has 3 roundabouts together that replace 2 lights. And I've never been able to go through those intersections as quickly as I can with those roundabouts compared to the lights. So there is issues, as you said, to go work through this concept and fine tune it and get it to the point where it'll work for us. But just like the divergent diamonds in Ephrata that everyone complained about and said they'd never use them, once they get used to them, it's a tremendous benefit to the township. It's a tremendous benefit to the residents. And I think this intersection here is a very dangerous intersection. I wouldn't mind seeing one put in at Colonel Howard Boulevard, in all honesty, because that is a dangerous intersection as well. One that I and my friends won't travel on our motorcycles because of the danger. You can't trust people to obey red lights or obey turn signals. So I'm 100% for this roundabout, and I urge the township to continue moving forward in a positive direction on that. I think the benefit to the residents will far outweigh the cost.
The roundabout Main Creek is 2 lanes though. So, and I've seen tractor trailers taking up both lanes to get around the roundabout. We're talking about a single lane roundabout.
Sorry, name please.
Kathleen O'Mara. I don't see how tractor trailers are gonna get around that 1 lane roundabout. I just don't see it. That's what I was asking earlier, and I didn't get an answer. You know, is this a 1 lane or a 2 lane? Because the Main Creek, the tractor trailers, they have a problem with the 2 lane roundabout themselves. And I've seen it myself. They have to take up both lanes to be able to get around that roundabout. I put the sheets of Main Creek.
The roundabout that's here is a 1 lane roundabout. Right
So
now.
if they're having a hard time with a 2 lane roundabout up in Main Creek with tractor trailers, how are these trucks gonna get through that?
Yes, sir.
I'm not getting that.
Wesley Hoover, I'm a heavy haul truck driver in the township. I will tell you, from experience, Hershey has 1 lane traffic circles. And with our oversized loads, we are in the circles on top of the curbs. We do tear up. With concrete cracks, and it gets rough. Oh, 2 lanes out 222, we struggle a little bit, but we can get through with an oversized load. I feel it's going to be very costly for the township, but money grows in trees for the township, I feel. Or it just seems that way, coming from a taxpayer. And I just can't see Redmond
I'll be doing that.
Just stay up, I mean, for both of your comments, for both of you about the trucks, that essentially the comment has been, it's gotta be designed to meet that truck traffic. So PennDOT's not gonna allow this to go in and not have something designed to be able to handle that. You are right, I think in some areas, and you know, being a truck driver and being all of us being motorists, some people drive a little bit better than others, you know? But there is the capability with this roundabout to be able to, according to, go over, like you said, that the concrete center or the concrete, not curbing that area. But it has to meet PennDOT requirements. So knowing that trucks have a certain size, travel on state roads, this has to comply with that. If that's what it's. So I hope that answers both questions.
And again, once the study comes back, we will have more specific measurements, more precise location and everything. And I'm sure this discussion is not going to go away, and we don't want it to, but we can discuss it further then. Yes, ma'am.
Stephanie said, Carl, I actually have a multi-part question that kind of ties in different things that I've talked about. I'm glad that I waited to this part to ask this question. You said that doing this is for the community. There's been multiple surveys sent out, especially recently, about property at parks and stuff. They want to see what people want to have done with them. If this is for the community and to better the community, why not ask the community what they want? Because the 30 to 40 people sitting in the room cannot speak for everybody. Why not send a survey out for these huge projects spending lots of money and see what they want, not just make it a 5-person vote or a 6-person vote on what happens.
Well, we can absolutely do that. And part of that, again, this is a concept. We've got to get some of the details surrounding the concept finalized. If we were to put this out there now, there's going to be thousands of questions because we don't have the granularity. There's not enough detail there yet.
But it is out there already, and people do have it.
As a concept, yes. So now, so do we ask people to vote on a concept, or do we ask people to vote on the details of the design?
If the community doesn't think it's even a good idea, why proceed forward with it anyways? Or if they think it's a great idea, then you should push forward even faster.
What would happen if PennDOT comes back and tells us you cannot do it regardless of what your community
Shouldn't
thinks?
you know that already?
We do know part of that answer already, yes. The requirements for the requirements for the 4 lanes. The amount of I call it runway on the approaches for the left-hand turns. We know those numbers already. We know the length of it. Hence why we just had the drawing related to how much of it we're going to take out.
Okay, and the other part to my question is, I hear all these $2,000 to $4,000 projects that are being made, these huge projects being made, that nobody bats an eye at throwing money towards those. But then you have the police chief asking for permission for 1 additional officer, when quite frankly, as someone who's lived here my entire life, I think they should have more than just 1 extra officer. We should be asking for 2 or 3, because who knows what could happen, whether it be another pandemic, someone getting sick. With all these new commercial zone lands going in, you're gonna have more police and fire related incidents where you're going to need more manpower. And it seems like the police and the fire related people are the ones that are not getting the money, and they're the ones that could use it the most.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name's Harold Rogers, and I just want to make a point and about the roundabouts. And I understand what you guys are saying, that it's just a concept, and I think what these people are trying to say is take this into consideration, because we know it's not into consideration. We don't think it is. I worked for 41 years in high country. We put trailers out in the road with 14-foot wide pieces, 65, 70 foot, 90 foot long, that we took the effort of, for an example, and had to go down through there. Can you see a 90-foot trailer
going around that short roundabout, 15 foot wide, 8 foot wide. No, you can't. That'll never happen. I mean, not without like a fire truck with a rear back end that you can steer. And no, you're not gonna happen. We loaded trailers out there that have 3 feet off the ground, the pieces are sitting. And they got 3 axles and they're extended and they're drop decks. This is not gonna make it with what you're proposing here. And I think that's what everybody's trying to say. Maybe we need to take a look at that. Maybe we need to go back to the state and say, we're not talking about regular tractor trailers. We're not talking about regular buses. We're talking about what's going through there now. Even take a look at even your ladder truck out of Reamstown. Is it gonna be able to make that turn to go to Denver or around? It has to go all the way around it to go towards Ephrata? I mean, there's some crazy things going on here.
What we can do is when the engineering group is looking at more granularity in the second step, is make sure they look at exactly those types of.
That's what we're asking.
We can, Mike, we can definitely ask her to double check.
Right, and that's obviously the point of having a public meeting like this, to get comments and to make sure that your voices are heard and we get a chance to share information, because sometimes not all the information's out there, so that's why I want to get.
Because I'm not a truck driver and I'm not a road engineer, so I'm not sure exactly what measurement requirements, excuse me, PennDOT's using on the trailers. I don't know if it's a standard 53-foot trailer. I'm just not sure. We can ask.
Okay. Vernon.
Yes, sir.
Just let you guys know, the new spec for high from the trailer, from the front of the trailer, or from the front of the truck to the back of the trailer is 120 feet when we're loaded, 14 foot wide.
I think different because I escorted 200 footers, bridge girders.
Done 120.
And out of your concrete plant, 800 loads went to Philadelphia, 800, just to do parking garages. This is what I'm getting at. The concrete in the center, wide loads, heavy loads are going to be causing a lot of problems on a single lane.
Yeah, we'll ask her to take a very close look at that. Yes.
Alan Maxwell, one final comment in regards to what you're saying there. I think we need to look at the big picture. What is the percentage of these heavy loads that are going to go through that intersection? I've lived here for 30 years and the percentage of those huge trailers like you're talking about don't come down 272 all that often. They go straight across to 222 up and down. You know, if we're looking at designing an intersection that'll benefit the residents of the township, we have to keep in mind, what's the percentage we're looking at? Is it 8%? Is it 4% of the traffic that comes down that intersection? Was these oversized heavy trucks that you're looking at? You know, the benefit to the township is that at, 90-some% benefit versus the 8% of the traffic. So we have to keep that in mind too as we move forward in the concept and planning to look at that type of thing, is how many trucks are coming through there a day, a week, a month that fit that category. You know, if we design it for them, we'll never have any changes to any roads, or we'll have roads the size of 222 all over the township. So we have to look at it in reality as to how many trucks actually of that size travel that intersection.
Well, you got dump trucks, you got lumber trucks, concrete trucks,
They won't have any issues navigating a circle.
and how come they, I got pictures of Maiden Creek and all the 10-wheelers were on the concrete.
That's driver error. There's no reason for someone driving a triaxle dump truck to be up on the center median.
The cars passing on the right side.
Okay, let me get a question back, Joe.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
In response to what both these gentlemen are talking about, if I'm correct, but I'll talk about oversized loads, which require a permit, and the permit company is supposed to check out the road to make sure it's feasible for them to go down. So they're not going to be sending them down to the ground.
Excuse me, on every truck that I drove to New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, we went up 222 to the roundabout.
But it's
And they were 200, 200 footers.
But it was a
150
two-lane
footers.
roundabout, not the
That's
one
correct,
lane.
yeah.
That's what I'm saying. They're not gonna send you on a
That's
one-lane
what we're gonna-
roundabout.
That's where we're waiting for the other stuff to come back.
Okay, final question, yes.
Donnie Stover, just to let everybody know, I heard the Maiden Creek roundabout is here a lot. I talked to emergency service personnel down that way. Prior to that roundabout, they were averaging almost one fatality a year at that intersection, lots of major accidents. Since the roundabout's been in, they had no major accidents, no fatalities there, so that's what the roundabout is doing. So,
All right. Thank you for your comments. Next item. New business.
So for new business, we have on the agenda Township Facebook page. I see that a lot of the boroughs around us have one. Our police department has one. Let's be honest, nowadays, everyone goes and gets their information on Facebook, whether it's true or false. Everyone gets their information on Facebook. So I feel like that gentleman back there said he posted something on the East Cocalico Township news page.
Yep.
And got over 100 some comments. I'm sure if the township would have had their own page, they probably would have got 1,000 comments. But I would like to propose that one of our, either our secretary or HR person in the office would manage the Facebook page if we would agree to have one, just for informational purposes. For example, I just saw Denver Borough, they just posted something about they're having whoever likes gardening, come out this day, we're gonna do flowers and stuff like that. I know that this past Saturday, our rec board, I think, had a park tour. If we advertise that, if they're open to the public, people might attend, and they could get feedback from the residents in the township on what they'd like to see at the park. I just think it's a great opportunity now more than ever to do something like this, and one of our staff members would have posted this, and like I said, probably would have been busy. Not that they're not busy enough, but again, it would just be for informational purposes only. We'll get it modernized on many things, so doing that would probably be a positive thing.
So the page would accept feedback from the residents.
Yeah.
Well, if you like it or not, they're gonna say what they want to say. But it's our job just to absorb it. There will be no replying. There will be no, I mean, I'd like to see it that way. There will be no replying on any township personnel to the resident. If they, if they'd like to see something, we'd have to discuss it in person at the next meeting.
I'm happy you're enthusiastic about an idea. I look at this as how much time is an employee going to be putting into managing this? What about undesirable comments that might come through? How do we screen them or?
So
I'm just asking.
I don't think you're on Facebook, and
I'm
not. I'm not a Facebook pro, but I think there's certain words or paragraphs or sentences, however you want to word it, that you can, how do you say it? You can filter them, and they're not going to be posted. Now, I don't expect one of our employees be on there 24/7. We had this discussion 2 weeks ago about the roundabout per se, Friday morning. Just post whatever information we have on Facebook and see you later. Like, you will have to monitor it occasionally. Just if there is something I think get filtered out. It's just a suggestion. Do you guys see that right in the borough?
Yeah, I mean, generally how it's used there is it's primarily just trying to get the word out to people what's going on. We don't engage in any response unless there's a question or clarification. A lot of times there's good comments, and a lot of times there's comments that tell you don't know how you get out of your car. Like, everybody's entitled to those opinions, and you're not going to. I think pretty much the decorum has been, there hasn't been anything where there's been curse words or any threats or anything like that. If someone doesn't like it, they say it. You just leave it there. That's what public comment's all about. But the process is just to have another mechanism to share something that's going on with more of the community who may look on Facebook more so than our website. And if they get an idea that this is coming up, this is a program that's coming up, whether it's a park tour or Greenstown Pool's opening, whatever the case may be, you take the good with the bad and you just make sure the community is engaged and is made aware.
So Mike, what are you doing with official, sorry,
No, go ahead.
what are you doing with official, a great example? Roundabout information, just as an example. What is what's Denver Borough, as an example, official announcement or release to the public mechanism? Is it Facebook or is it your website? Is that, which medium do you use?
And a lot of times, if with Facebook, if there's an attachment or if there's more information, it'll have the link to the website that you go on. Because we know a lot of people, many more people will look at Facebook one than even look at our website.
So you're really double places.
Yeah, we're doing both. We have one employee, there's three employees, essentially, one and myself cover the Facebook. She does all the posting, but we'll review it before it goes. The other one does most of the website posting as well. And that's also coordinated as it goes out. So that's kind of the way it's handled. We try to cover both. But with Facebook, we're also, actually, we had 2 high school students from Garden Spot High School who were doing a community service program, designed a Facebook page, because we were all staring at it, trying to figure out how to do it. They got it working. Since then, we've been able to expand it, and now we have staff, and I think our staff would be more than happy to work with our staff here to say, here's what we did, here's how we set it up, here's how you can handle all that posting. But yeah, the ground rules are, you're not going to get in an argument with anyone, you're not going to go back and forth. You're just going to provide information and people take it who want to take it and don't.
Well, let me ask one other question. When you guys set up Facebook, the technology wasn't there where the competitors like Rumble or Gab were there. Rumble, I believe Rumble took quite a percentage of business from Facebook. So by using Facebook, are we narrowing down that? Or are we picking and choosing and narrowing the scope of the medium they're using to get the information out there? When now there's Rumble and there's Gap. Should it really be on all 3?
Twitter, Instagram.
Well, but Twitter's different. That's just. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Stephanie Serco, so listening to this conversation, it's kind of entertaining being part of the younger generation. I have no idea what half the stuff you're saying even is. I know that most people, my parents, my grandparents, even my great-grandmother, when she was still here, had a Facebook. And whether it is one social media platform or 20 social media platforms, most of them you can tie together that if you make a post on one, it automatically goes to all, so you can expand yourself there in different ways. And I completely agree with Lorenzo in having one, not only because you want the input of your community, so why not let them where most are have that chance to say it where they feel comfortable. And whether you respond or not, I don't think you need to censor your constituents, because what they're gonna say is how they feel, unless obviously they're taking it a little too far. But I completely agree that there should be a way that the township gets information out to people other than just posting it on their website or meetings like this, that there might be people that don't even know this exists.
Do you guys have any issues?
Can you go to James Howard Trick or Street night?
Okay, now that's personal.
Turn it off of that.
We don't comment back, or we don't, unless it's something important. We don't, the other thing you have to be careful of, is we don't take complaints. You should post that somewhere, or not, you know, you have to call in, you have to make contact with somebody, because it's not monitored 24%. That's an important part, at least of ours, obviously.
You can turn off direct messaging as well, I know.
But you don't want somebody posting something thinking they're gonna get a response.
Correct.
So it has to be on there somewhere. Otherwise, we really have no major issues. We did learn our lesson that, you know, when you're taking posts down that are when I say derogatory, I mean that are inappropriate, those type of things, you have to be very careful when you're getting into certain things. But there's a way to deal with it. My main concern is that this is not a complaint. This is not a page where we take complaints. You can complain on the page, but it's not like, hey, there's a 3 down on Sportsville Road, something along that.
It's really just more information sharing, you know, the way to engage the community in a way that maybe more people are familiar with and comfortable using. So that I think is the goal. And it just becomes one tool and the different ways that township tries to communicate with our residents.
Denver Burrows is so great, they had one, they made a new one. They had one, now they made a new one.
Because I think one of the administrators couldn't remember.
You forgot.
Those two kids graduated, I don't know what college they went to. This isn't being recorded. We're just us here. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to present it, we'll talk about it, and we'll talk about that another time.
Chad Weaver, actually, I think you guys are way behind the 8 ball on this. The wheel's been made by every municipality around you for years. Every fire department in your township has a Facebook page. Police department has, EMA even has.
Chief,
Township itself is the only one that does not.
Chief, I'll take exception. We are ahead of a lot of municipalities by putting everything out on video.
Correct. Facebook, you're behind the 8 by years. There shouldn't even be a discussion. It's already done.
So there's a balance.
I understand.
There could be a concern, we might need to hire an additional employee just to run.
Wouldn't surprise me. Let's just stop.
I don't know what the travel. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, no other new business? Public comment for non-agenda items. Please state your name again, clearly, or to help us with meeting times. Any questions? Yes, sir.
I actually have 2 items for this. I know I've talked a lot tonight. I appreciate your tolerance of that. First one, I believe it was 2 meetings ago, there was some public discussion and a vote, a unanimous vote by the board to start prayer prior to the meeting. In the meantime, we've not had anything, no prayer at all, and I was curious if that has been unvoted on, if you will, and dismissed, or if there's some issues that are preventing you folks from doing that. I think it's a great idea. Just curious as to why we have not done it.
You know, we had future, not future, we had further discussion afterwards as well. Obviously, all 3 of us did, you're right, we did vote on it. But I would like all 3 of us to always be on the same page, obviously, but there was a member that, had some concerns. So just to make sure that person was heard, we did not proceed with it.
I've done a lot of, excuse me, a lot of research. Talked to different specialists in the field. Our solicitor, he okayed the idea as long as it's board specific. I've talked to other experts that say the same thing. I'm not one looking for controversy. It seems to happen anyway. I appreciate Lorenzo's idea and I support it. I'm weighing the options a little bit about how we should proceed. The school board, they do it behind closed doors before. There's options of this board doing the same thing, obviously. That way it takes it out of play during. I think we're gonna get to a consensus, whether it's 1, 2, or 3. I've looked at it from my perspective. I'm not speaking for the board. I handle it personally. I do it myself before a meeting. That's how I deal with it. I think it would be good as a group, but there again, I don't want to overstep my bounds and create more problems for the board. So, it's and from my perspective, the idea is not dead. But I just want to find the proper mechanism, the proper way.
I can respect that. Thank you. The second question I had then, Chairman Carrasco, in your previous meeting, you had mentioned, and I'm bringing it up here, regards to the missing W-2s
Yes.
that were misplaced for approximately, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 meetings, maybe. This was discussed over the course of the past year, and it was always said they were misplaced. We don't know where they are. We don't know where they are. In your statement, you said that Weinhold Nichols, the township payroll accountant, and they were required to be there in order to respond or address any questions that were related to township payroll taxes for the audit. Is that new information to the board, or is that something we knew and just we're not telling people?
That was new information to me.
So Weinhold Nickel had them the whole time and no one knew about it within the township?
I did not know about it.
That's not quite answering my question.
What's the
You
answer?
might not have known it,
I
but I'm asking if anyone else within the township knew it and withheld the information.
You're asking me if I knew about it. I answered your question. I did not know about it.
Did anyone in the township know about it and not say?
I don't know. I can't.
I just find it curious that if they were required by law to be there, someone within the township would have known that. And there wouldn't have been all those questions and all the attention in previous meetings on missing documents. And all of a sudden we have an explanation.
Completely understand.
This seems a little odd to me. I just want to ask that question.
In my purview as a supervisor, I didn't know that.
Thank you.
And you could ask the other supervisors.
I can throw out to the whole board. Did anyone in the township, to the best of your
You
knowledge?
specifically asked me. I'm just.
Well, I
saying.
came to you with that, but I can throw it out to the whole board right now. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
To the best of your knowledge, did anyone within the township know that those records were at Weinhold Nickel and just failed to mention that?
I only learned it now, obviously, because I came on board January 3rd, so I can speak on behalf of myself.
Just for clarity purposes here, you're, say it one more time.
I'm asking, did anyone in the township, a township employee, whether it was an office staff, someone else, were there any communication from Weinhold Nickel that they had these documents, know about it and just failed to say during the entire year as we were searching for these?
Yeah.
I did not know they were applying.
But no, we don't know if anyone in the township knows, just failed
That's
to
what I
say.
had said.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Jeb Weaver, I'm here for the fire company's behalf. And I failed on my end, I have not looked back through, but I was told several meetings ago, you had presented an idea about some kind of reimbursement for the firefighters or something along that line. Can you highlight that a little bit?
Sorry, chief.
You had highlight, there was mention about some kind of program for the firemen or something. I have not looked back in that, in the YouTube to look at that. Is there a summary to that or a little bit there, or what
Sure,
that is, or
sure.
what is involved there? And you don't have to go into great detail.
No, let me pull it up real quick, so. Sure. So the key point behind this was, there was a.
Here, I just tried.
Is Doug back there? Doug? The cloud. The cloud.
Oh.
All right. It's an old joke between Doug and I. So basically, I'll go through this very, very quickly. It's actually good. There's a lot of members of the public here that probably haven't seen this yet. So basically, in Pennsylvania, the statistics are very simple. Since the 1970s, we had about 300,000 volunteer fire departments. In 2018, this is all data that is absolutely measured and corroborated, and it was in Governing Magazine in 2019. We're down to about 38,000 volunteer firefighters. Okay, the volunteer firefighters from 2016 to 2017 were the lowest on record. That the NFPA began the survey in 1983. The NFPA is the National Fire. Help me out, Chief. National Fire Protection Association, which is the nationally recognized professional institution for firefighters. Is that fair? Yeah. More than 90% of the state's fire companies are volunteers in Pennsylvania specifically. And since the 1970s, the numbers of firefighters have actually declined by about 88%. 7 key factors is what they identified in their studies as to the reasons why there's a decline in firefighters. There's many other ones, but there's 7 key ones that they identified. Baby boomers are aging out and they're not being replaced with the younger generation. I'll give you a couple of the key ones here. Inflexibility of modern employment schedules. When I was employed at Lucent, there was no way in the world with my position overseas that I could be a volunteer firefighter. So there's professions that just don't allow it. Need to hold multiple jobs to make ends meet. The transition of modern lifestyles that make it difficult to volunteer. Increased awareness of cancer risks in volunteer fire community that is starting to pop up. An increase in urbanization that's pulled volunteers away from the rural communities. What they're basically stating there is relocations. When I read the report, basically people are relocating to larger areas. So in Pennsylvania, communities are actually testing a number of options in Pennsylvania right now to mitigate, really to reduce the impact of these shortages. And in Pennsylvania, for example, the Commission of Emergency Services recommended 3 solutions. They actually recommended these. More funding for training, more funding for training and equipment, As a side note there, we're doing that. We've done that. Alan, Doug, and I started that. We did that. We paid for the, going backwards in time, we paid for the grant writers and the air packs in 2021, about $5,000. We actually paid $34,000 roughly for the Motorola radio purchases back in 2020. We increased funding from $25,000 in 2018 to $35,000 in 2021. This is also again to our volunteer firefighters. And there's some overlap here also with the ambulance, okay? And then in 2018, we provided support for the helipad that was actually put out in the back of your building here. The other item that they brought up was increased incentives for the volunteer firefighters. And then they, of course, talked about better online marketing. We just had the Facebook discussion, and there you go, better online marketing for the firefighters. So we rolled out a strategy in the past, and that strategy was moving forward. It was really, we had these discussions back in 2018, 2019, to lead the county and everything we do. So this was really a continuation of that. Let's try to lead the county in everything we do. Okay. So basically the program mission, get to your answer real quickly. The mission of the program, its mission statement is very simply to help reduce the impact of volunteer shortages by providing increased incentives and recognition directly to the individual firefighter for a stronger community. So we're providing support to the fire companies. Now we're thinking about going direct to the firefighter. And is it even feasible? Okay. So the concept for the program is really it would be to assist in recruitment, retention, and appreciation of our volunteer firefighters. And what it would be annual township funding that's specifically set aside just for this program. It would be encumbered funds specifically assigned when our budgets come out for this program. Active volunteers would have to meet specific criteria for an active volunteer. Now, the question is, what is an active volunteer? I don't know. This is where we would, the concept is we would have to have a definition of what's an active volunteer. The fire departments would have to help us with that and say, what does that mean? Time commitments, is it the number of fires they attend, what their training is? I don't know. I'm not an expert in the field. We would leave that up to the departments to tell us. Once we have some kind of agreement on what that criteria is, then what we would do is once the criteria is set and the volunteers meet the criteria, then what we would do, the concept is we would then provide a payout to those volunteers that meet that criteria at the end of the year to thank them, and again, to help incentivize them to continue volunteering, continue being there, and to assist them with some of their costs. So the concept is really, it's 2 years of investment growth with initial funds, annual payouts, program tenure. The idea and the concept there was it doesn't have to be consecutive years. A firefighter may step away because of family, because of medical issues, and then come back to firefighting. But the point is, if they have 2 years cumulative, again, just a concept, fire departments may say, this is an interesting idea, but we want 3 years cumulative, or let's start with year 1. This was just some of the original ideas to get us started. Then a variable disbursement cap account for the volunteer growth. So the idea there is take that variable number at the end of the year, and that number, the payout will vary depending on how many meet the definition of the criteria at the end of the year. The active volunteer, again, active volunteer must be met for payment. Each annual payment is based on the current year's criteria. Participation is completely voluntary. If firefighters, if the departments want to participate or not. Again, I'm going to emphasize this again. This is purely a concept and idea to get us started into how in the world can we stop, I'm gonna say it, it's a shame. How do we stop the hemorrhaging that's occurring in the volunteer fire community in East Cocalico? Nobody's figured this out yet, and I'm gonna be very blunt here. A lot of politicians have kicked this can down the road. Nobody wants to touch it, and I said this the first time, I've been very blunt, and I'll always be open with the community. A lot of people know me, don't ask me a question if you don't want the honest answer. This is like Social Security. This is the third rail nobody wants to touch. Nobody wants to touch this, discuss it, because I don't know why. But we've got to stop the hemorrhaging with our volunteer community. So this is, again, it's a model to research viability, meaning can this even be done? Can it even legally be done? What are the hurdles here? How do we do this? So what we do as a municipality is, like Lorenzo, just great example, just brought up the Facebook. When we have ideas and concepts like this, before we spend any money, Alan and Doug know this, before we spend any money in resources investigating the idea, we first have to have agreement, is it even worth looking at? Okay, so I'm not saying this is the program. I'm not saying this is 10% of the program. We don't know. What we need to do is at least start the discussion to see, is it even feasible? Are the departments even interested? Or is there an even better idea? And this is the catalyst to help us start thinking about that. Okay. So just as an example, this was, again, I highlighted it there, pure modeling example. So as an example, if the program were started in 2022, if the municipality set aside $15,000, if you assumed an interest rate, I think it's pretty close to right, an interest rate of almost 0 of 0.5%. If you assume very low interest rates, what happens to that money? How does that money grow over time? And then I just have an example down below that says payout with participation of 100%. And Chief, I apologize. I just kind of threw these numbers out there. I just used as an example. Grahamstown has 40 active firefighters. Smokestown has 20. Stevens has 20. And again, I apologize if the numbers are wrong. These were just my throwing a number in the model. Okay. So if, as an example, if 75% of your firefighters participated, the total number could be 60 firefighters that meet the criteria. At the end of the year, the municipality would reimburse them or get them a check for $250 or a gift card for gasoline or whatever. Again, whatever it worked out to be. If participation dropped to 60%, that number would go to $312.50. But again, are these the numbers? No, it's purely the model. So I went through it pretty quickly, but that's in essence what we discussed. Tell me our last 3 weeks ago.
I think it's a couple meetings ago. Yeah.
Right.
So what are you looking from the fire departments to do at this point in time?
Good question, because then we came up with our next step. Okay, you want to talk about the next step?
So the next step is for me and Mike to come out and talk to each chief and get your guys' feedback of the program, what you think of it, what you think we should be doing, what you think we shouldn't be doing. And then myself or Mike, probably Mike, so he doesn't forget anything, we'll bring it back to the board and we'll discuss it from there. And then obviously we'll all have to agree to something to move forward.
Okay.
But that will also involve you 3 chiefs.
And that's what I was asking. This program, an incentive program is already in place from the state and from the federal government. So the wheel has already been invented. You just got to mold it to what you want it to fit. There's a point system. Person does this, they get this many points to do that. And you draw the line on what that is, and then they get copies. We're actually going through that here at Stevens because we're going to start applying for federal grants for incentive programs. And we have to invent that wheel. So if you're looking to do that in the township, we're not looking to jump ahead and go and invent the wheel and you have to come along and say, this is the way we're going to do it. We'd rather wait talk to you guys and figure out what that wheel's gonna look like and incorporate it in and then go after the federal money on our end for a bigger payout for these guys. I mean, we could get $300,000 from the federal government if we could get that, but we need to have the program in place to do that.
So Chief, there's a great example, right? So if there's that program in place already, the first step here is the discussion, because maybe it's a model where you don't wait. You go with the federal program and we somehow merge it.
And that's what we're learning, the program's there, but again, for us, we don't deal with the federal government all the time. It looks like a bunch of hoopla. So we gotta have some people look at it that understand it to say, you can do this, or you can't do that, or, because if you don't follow it to the T the way they want it, you don't get it. Right. Or if you give it to you and you find out you did something wrong, we'll take it from you. So it does exist, so you're moving in the direction everybody else is, so just, we'll wait to talk to you guys and see if we can't gel up a whole package.
Right, so question, yes, sir.
Steve Brubeck. So that was my question. Is this a municipal concept? Is this a state concept?
It is strictly a municipal concept right now. So really, the origin right now is East Cocalico for this type of item. Now, what the chief is saying is they have something similar at a state level, so this is where we start looking at this. And again, we haven't decided, Steve, whether we're doing this or not. We're just proposed the model, and now we're trying to get feedback. Does the model even work, or do we try something different?
Sure, because if there are funds out there by the state that are already doing this, then let's use it.
Absolutely, and that was my point. If we can come up with a township model, that federal grant writer you got for the air pack, we can do the same thing for the township to do that for him, to go get that, to give it to the township to fund that. So you can invest $3,000 to $5,000 in that grant writer and get a $300,000 grant and put it in a much bigger package, but we have to get the rules and the things laid out. That's a good thing. I mean, you guys have agreed to pay for the grant writers already when we do these things, so that's already there. So let's get that process going and reward your personnel for that. It's not gonna happen tomorrow. It'll take 3 to 5 years probably to even come up with a program, but at least you're looking at direction. And that's everything. Well, if you can understand the hoopla, it will be even better, so.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Susie Mackel. Hey, Mike, just thinking about this. That name that was like missing from the TIP committee, did you get my message? I left you a message.
Today.
No,
Today?
no,
I don't know.
I think a couple of weeks ago, I left you a message that on the township website.
Okay.
Under the traffic and fee.
Oh, right. That's
That
all.
name is missing.
That was all, that should have been fixed. That.
No, it's still missing. It's still not on, so.
Okay, I'll check with Lisa, but we had to make some, had to go in and make some changes and everything was straightened out. We broke the planning and,
No, TIF stayed on.
on the roster.
Oh, she's on TIF.
Yeah, I'm saying the website was updated to reflect who's on each committee.
So Lisa,
Initially, yeah, you were right. You pointed out that it wasn't on there, but I thought she made that change to it after you pointed it out.
Am I misunderstanding?
I don't know. We're seeming to be talking to different things.
your name's missing on the roster.
Pardon
Your
me?
name's missing on the roster all the time.
Correct. It's not on the website. It's
Yeah,
on the-
it's, you look on the website now and it's still not on there, correct?
No, it's not on.
No, because that, when you sent that message, the message was to fix everything on there, and I thought it was fixed.
No.
So I will confirm that.
Website right now?
Unless they have internet here.
No, I actually checked this today. No. And that's not me. Somebody else.
I will get to the bottom of that tomorrow. That should have been taken care of when you first pointed it out.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was an accident or what happened, but
I'm sure it just wasn't oversight. So it's good to have that.
Any other questions? Okay. The next Board of Supervisor meeting will be held on March 17th, and that will be a 9 a.m. meeting. That will be the morning meeting. That'll be held in person and of course via Zoom at the East Cocalico Township Building on Hill Road. And I need a
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
motion and second, all in favor? Thank you, everyone.